Yes, sir.
Okay, you may begin now.
The council seek permission to address the bench collectively as your lordships.
Yes, please go ahead.
Much obliged, your lordships. Good morning, your lordships. I am Anasoumya and this is my co-counsel Kaushalya. And the researcher of my team is Miss Megha. We represent the plaintiff in the case Laura versus Excel. I shall argue for 20 minutes today and will address the submission regarding negligence, and subsequently my co-counsel shall argue for another 20 minutes and will address the other 3 submissions relating to vis major, voluntary non-fit injuria and damages. Are your lordships conversant with the facts of the case, or may I assist the court with a brief summary of the facts?
Not required. We've read through, so you can proceed.
Much obliged, your lordship. The council seeks permission to proceed with the submissions.
Go ahead.
Much obliged, your lordship. So the submission 1 is that the defendant was negligent in its actions. Your lordship, the essentials of negligence have been established in the case of Poonam Verma versus Ashwin Patel, and there are 3 main requisites of negligence. They are namely legal duty to exercise due care, breach of the said duty, and consequential damages. The council shall address each of the requisite severally. First, the first credential of negligence is the duty of care. So, in the present case, it can be very well observed that there was a duty of care on the defendant to protect the plaintiff from any foreseeable risk she could encounter within the ambit of the island during this particular period of time. And this can be substantiated using the Caparo test, which was established in the case of Caparo Industries versus Dickman. And this case was also upheld in Indian jurisdiction in the case of Municipal Corporation of Delhi, which is Association of Victims of Ubhar Tragedy. So the Caparo test consists of broadly three main questions, your lordships, and they are: was the risk of injury or harm to the claimant reasonably foreseeable? Was there sufficient proximity between the parties? Is it fair, just, and reasonable to impose a duty of care on the defendant? Is the counsel audible, your lordship?
Completely. Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
indeed.
Yes, we are
So,
audible. No.
firstly, with regard to the foreseeable nature of harm, your lordship, the mode proposition, page 1, paragraph, the para 3 of the mode proposition clearly indicates the nature of Paradise Island. That is, the Paradise Island being a remote, secluded and sparsely inhabited island with magnificent flora and fauna. So it is very well manifest and obvious that there are several risks inherent in the island and hazards. Moreover, paragraph 9 illustrates that bacterial infection is very common in the island, so, which means it has been increasingly prevalent in the island. Therefore, it is very reasonably foreseeable that any of the contestants, not necessarily the plaintiff, but any of the contestants could have possibly contracted the bacterial infection. Therefore, the risk of injury to the claimant was reasonably foreseeable. Secondly, with respect to the proximate relationship between the parties, your lordship, the defendant and the plaintiff were under a contract. They had a contract which was indicative of general obligations as stated in the general clarifications. And so it can be very well postulated that they are in a very proximate relationship to the defendant to owe a duty of care on the plaintiff, to the plaintiff. Thirdly, it can be said that since owing to the foreseeable nature of harm and the proximate relationship between the plaintiff and the defendant, it is fair, just, and reasonable to impose a duty of care on the defendant. Having said this, the Caparo test has been fulfilled in the present case, and so it has been affirmed and confirmed that there has indeed been a duty of care on the defendant to protect the plaintiff from any foreseeable untoward incidents she could encounter in the island. If your lordship have no inquiries, the council seeks permission to move on to the next credential of negligence.
With respect to negligence, which is the case? Can you hear me?
Yeah, indeed, yes, Your Lordship.
Yeah, so with respect to negligence, which
Yes,
is the case that basically spelt out the ingredients of negligence?
Ingredients of negligence in Indian law was spelled by Cohen and Verma versus Ashwin Patel, and also in the common law by Ryland versus Fletcher, Blyth versus Birmingham, and several
Which was
others.
the earliest one, international law, earliest one?
The earliest one.
Did you go through Donahue?
Can you repeat your question, Your Lordship?
Did you go through Donahue?
Donaghy versus Stevenson. Indeed, Your Lordship.
Good. Yes, go ahead. What are the necessary ingredients?
The duty of care, breach of the said duty, and consequential damages. The damages should result from the duty of the breach of duty. And in the Donaghy, the neighborhood principle was laid down, Your Lordship. The person.
Go ahead.
So moving on to the second credential of negligence, the breach of duty of care. Your Lordship, the Council would like to direct your attention to the Moore proposition, para 9 again, which clearly states that as the island was situated in a remote location, it took some time for the medical team to arrive. And so it says it clearly denotes that there was no onshore medical team in the island in itself, and they had to bring the doctors from somewhere else. So therefore, it can be very well inferred that there was no onshore medical team. And Your Lordship, it must be noted that the provision of emergency facilities is a very general practice in this 21st century. And in the sense that an onshore medical team, is readily available anywhere and everywhere, in universities, in schools, in gyms, etc. But despite the adventurous and competitive nature of the show, the defendant had omitted to provide a medical team. And also,
Consul, I have a
yes, Your
question.
Lordship.
Sorry to interrupt. In the whole team, your client was the only person who got affected, isn't it?
The facts.
Was there any record of any other person claiming that he or she fell sick, the same sickness as your client has suffered?
The Moore proposition is silent about that, Your Lordship. Since this
So that means-
is concerning only about the plaintiff and the defendant, they have not mentioned any outside information. But however, it can be very well postulated that many other participants would have incurred some risks as well, concerning taking into consideration the.
So can you presume your client has some special kind of condition that she got affected? She is the only one who got affected. So
Your Lordship.
How the other party will be, your defendant will be liable for that?
Your Lordship, again to repeat what I said, the fact sheet is silent on that matter. That whether
silent means it is not there.
Or
Nobody has
maybe it
claimed.
was there, but we have not.
No, we are not concerned with that.
What my
As long as they are not before us.
What my lord's asking you is that let's assume for a second that she was the only one who was affected. He wants you to deal with that aspect and answer him to that aspect as to if she's the only one who seems to have been affected. It could be a case of she having some kind of a particular issue as opposed to anybody else not facing a similar issue.
Yes.
So at this juncture, the council would then like to use the Excel skull rule, which says the defendant has to take the plaintiff as they are and should not, and the plaintiff being predisposed to a harm does not matter in the present case, according to the Excel skull rule.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No.
Indeed, Your Lordship. And also para 9 also indicates that the accommodation were not fumigated against the bacterial infection. So therefore, it can be said that the defendant indeed breached the duty of care by not providing a fumigated accommodation and an onshore medical team. And this can be very well verified using the Bolton test, which was laid down in the case of Bolton versus Stone. And in the Indian jurisdiction, this case was upheld by District Board of Nandbam versus Shaira Pada Sarkar and others. The Bolton test consists of three main factors necessary for breach of duty of care, and they are likelihood of harm, cost and practicability of precautions, and whether the defendant provided a socially useful service. So, firstly, with regard to the increased likelihood of harm, as mentioned earlier, the magnitude of the risk and the hazard in the Paradise Island. Yeah, okay. In the hazards in the Paradise Island were increasingly prevalent, and there was an increased likelihood of any of the contestants contacting the same, given the nature of the Paradise Island and the bacterial infection and the competition and everything. And secondly, with regard to the cost and practicability of precautions, as mentioned earlier, onshore medical team, the emergency facilities are very common and a general practice in this era. And concerning negligence, Your Lordship, now my researcher will be sharing the screen, which will highlight some of the well-known and published documents about fumigation. So about fumigation is basically a widely acknowledged practice as well, and increased literature and scientific knowledge on various types of fumigants, depending on the location and type of bacteria and pests involved, are readily available and accessible to common public as well. I guess my voice is echoing, Your Lordships.
Yeah, just okay. Carry on.
Okay. For illustrating the same, we can take a look into the screen. And this document was published by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And there are several other manuals and handbooks which are published by Food and Agriculture and several other international organizations, Your Lordship, and NGOs as well.
Is it mandatory?
In the present case, it was mandatory, Your Lordship, given the prevalence of bacterial infection and the increase.
Is it part of the contract?
Yes.
The contract was indicative of general obligations, and taking into account the situation of the Paradise Island, the current circumstance, it comes under general obligations. So therefore, we can say fumigation falls under general obligation, and so it was mandated by the contract as well. And moving on, these handbooks also provide a lot of alternatives on the line of fumigation, where complete fumigation cannot be carried out if that defense is taken by the defendant, and fumigation of bacteria.
No, your voice is not clear.
Chlorine dioxide.
I can't hear.
There's a break in your speech.
There must be some technical.
Is the network all right, or do you need to move to a place where you have better network?
Ma'am, is there any technical issue?
Really audible. It keeps breaking.
Court officer, who is the second participant from the plaintiff's team?
Is my voice audible now?
Now yes. Now I can hear.
Okay.
Yeah, continue.
Okay, please continue.
Yes.
Now let us continue. No problem.
Yes, Your Lordship. And in order to throw light on the fumigation of bacterial infection more, we can say that the fumigant of chlorine dioxide, which is a widely used fumigant against bacterial infections and viral infections, it takes only a day's time, unlike the other chemicals, to do its objective, the purpose. And it's also been proved that chlorine dioxide is an efficacious and a cost and risk-effective mode of fumigation. Yes. Is my voice audible now, Your Lordship?
Yes. Go ahead.
Is audible?
Okay. Indeed, Your Lordship. And also, it has to be noted that the defendant, having come up with the concept of back to nature in May 2019, had a couple of months to fumigate effectively and to alleviate its risks, since the shooting of the show began only on July of 2019. And therefore, so chloride dioxide could have been readily used in the present case.
Madam,
If it was
Madam
recorded.
Counsel, I have a doubt in this regard.
Yes, Your Lordship.
You also started proceeding to that before ensuring all these kind of things. You knew that it was an uninhabited island. There might have been some problem. Did you ensure that everything is safe before you set out for this kind of risk in your life?
Your Lordship, it cannot be. The facts is again silent on that case, Your Lordship. Laura being aware of the risks of the Paradise Island. And yes, Your Lordship, any reasonable person could have taken reasonable precautions and adequate measures.
Did you do that? That's the question.
Obviously,
Did you do
Laura
that?
would have done it. Laura would have done it, Your Lordship. However,
Would have. Now,
Yep,
simple precautions to be taken for the person. For example, somebody takes anti-allergies and goes. Now, that's how people take precautions. So, do you have anything to state that you took complete precaution, you took anti-allergies, all of it, and went to that place, and yet you developed these rashes?
Laura could have taken reasonable precautions, such as for cold or for fever, some reasonable precautions. And but the bacterial infection is something which requires fumigation and a more duty of care, substantially increased care, which could not have been possible by Laura. And moreover, the facts are silent about this issue, so we cannot go on making assumptions if Laura took adequate precautions, because the facts are only indicative of the fact that the defendant was totally negligent about not taking any reasonable precautions in the island.
Go on.
No, you can proceed now because your time is also less. Carry on.
Indeed, Your Lordship. So therefore, it can be said that the precautions and safeguards we are asking for are reasonable and practical and much doable. And thirdly, the defendant did not provide any socially useful service. So therefore, all three factors of the Bolton test have been met with in the present case, which proves that defendant did breach the duty of care by not providing accommodation and an onshore medical team. The counsel would like to move on to the third prevention of negligence, that is the consequential damages. There are two limbs of this argument, Your Lordship. One is causation and other one is remoteness. So first, with regard to the causation, Your Lordship, the counsel of the defendant is seen to have made use of the but-for test to ascertain the cause of plaintiff's injury. However, it must be noted that the but-for test has several disadvantages with respect to underestimating certain material factors causing injuries and might lead to paradoxical results wherein the plaintiff can be left with no course of action. In order to elucidate the same, let's take the example of Julius Caesar. So prior to Marcus Brutus, there would have been 10 other people who stabbed Caesar. And so Marcus cannot come now and plead innocence by saying that my stab doesn't hold it. Caesar could have died either way. And this is the argument if he would have made using the but-for test. So this test is very twisted, Your Lordship. So the counsel would like to use the materially increase the risk test, which was laid down in the case of Meggie, which is National Code Board. And so according to this test, a cause is considered materially contributory or materially increased the risk if it was more likely that the cause for the damage was the defendant's breach of duty rather than any of the other causes put together. And the defendant should not be allowed to escape liability just because the medical evidence is inconclusive. And when aligned to our case, regardless of whether she had been exposed to bacterial infection from general environment or not fumigating the accommodation, which was the only place she could have stayed in the island other than the competition, they had materially increased the risk of injuries to the contestants. And these risks were further aggravated by not providing an onshore medical team.
Okay. One small question. I think you felt some problem. Did you bring it to the notice of the organizers in the first instance itself? Or did you wait for the problem to be aggravated?
The counsel, the plaintiff would not have... obviously, she did inform the organizers when she had developed rashes, redness, and that's when they brought in medical team. However, the silence perceived was about the supposed inadequacies in the accommodation, which were completely independent from that of the injuries of the plaintiff, in the sense that the silence was about the discomfort of the accommodation. And the silence was not about the fact that the accommodation was not fumigated. So therefore, there are two independent events which cannot be linked and cannot be taken as a defense for your lordship. So moving on to the second leg of the argument, remoteness. Your lordship, the whole chain of damages, that is Laura contacting bacterial infection which developed acute laryngitis, which made her lose her voice and which left her to cancel the whole of the global tour. The whole damages is said to be remote by the defendant, but that's not the case, in the sense that the defendant was the proximate cause of the principal injury of the plaintiff. The principal injury being the bacterial infection. Nor is breach of duty of care, the whole chain of damages could have been prevented.
Court officers, give her 1 minute because of the technical problems in between. Give her 1 more minute.
Yes, Your Lordship. Yes, Your Lordship.
Go on.
Okay.
Go on, please.
So,
Counsel, please continue.
yes, Your Lordship. So therefore, if not for his breach of duty of care, the whole chain of damages could have been prevented. And so it is just and reasonable to hold the defendant liable for the consequences of his negligent acts. Therefore, owing to the said grounds, the consequential damages are not actionable. Hence, having said this, all three credentials of negligence have been met within the present case. And therefore, the counsel summons before this honorable court of law that the defendant was indeed negligent in its actions. I end my submissions, Your Lordship. It was a pleasure arguing before this court of law. And thank you very much for the time extension, Your Lordship.
Can proceed.
Counsel?
Yes, Your Lordship. The speaker too shall start.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Am I audible, Your Lordships?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Please.
Okay. A very good day, Your Lordships. I am the co-counsel of the plaintiff, that is Ms. Laura. I shall be dealing with the third issue concerning vis nature, fourth issue concerning quality non-fit injuria, and fifth issue concerning damages. With the permission of this court, may I proceed to my submissions, Your Lordships?
Yes, proceed,
Go ahead.
please.
Much obliged, Your Lordships. Coming on to the third issue concerning vis nature, the Defensive Act of God has been held in various landmark cases such as Nugent versus Smith and in the Indian jurisdiction, that is Province of Madras versus I.S. Machado, and various other cases, as has been stated in page 12 of the memorial for Your Lordship's reference. Ultimately, the crux of the defense comes down to these elements that the counsel would be saying now. Firstly, an act of God has to be direct. Secondly, immediate. Third, exclusive operation of nature. Fourth, without human intervention. Fifth, could not have been foreseen. And if foreseen, could not have been prevented with reasonable degree of care or aid of appliance. Your Lordship, in the present case, coming to the first aspect, that is the directness of the bacterial infection, it was not direct as there was human interference in the form of the negligent actions of the defendant, that is by not fumigating the rooms and not providing an onshore medical team. Moving on to the second element, that it was not immediate, the counsel would like to direct your Lordship's attention to page 2, para 8, line 1. It states that she had developed the symptoms only after 2 weeks, which shows that it was not sudden. Coming to the third element, that is exclusive operation of nature, the counsel has already submitted there was human interference in the form of the negligent action. Moving on to the fourth element, that is whether it was foreseeable. Your Lordships, it has to be taken into consideration that what the nature of the Paradise Island was. One, it was remote, secluded, sparsely inhabited, so it is reasonable to assume that such an island would be conducive for infections to thrive, and it would be dangerous for humans to go there. Moreover, it has been stated in para 9 that the doctors were amazed that the rooms were not fumigated, which shows that the rooms were supposed to be fumigated and the defendant had negligently not fumigated them. Coming on to the fifth and sixth element, that is, it was very well foreseeable and could have been prevented by providing basic amenities, that is by fumigating the rooms. Your Lordship, at this juncture,
I'll interrupt you there. So when you talk about negligence, then
Yes,
what
ma'am.
are the different forms of negligence?
Sorry, Your Lordship, can Your Lordship please repeat the
Different
question?
forms of negligence, so that we could see as to what bracket you are putting them into. Which form of negligence would you bracket them into?
Your Lordship, negligence could be of a normal nature or of a gross nature, whereas in the present case, it can be put under the gross nature because the harm that was foreseeable was so blatantly it can also be seen that the bacterial infection was very prevalent in the island. So it does not take any experience to know this. Therefore, it comes under gross negligence, Your Lordship. So before concluding this argument,
Tell you to get in again. I'm again giving you a hint. Would you want to
Yes,
tell
Your
me whether it's misfeasance, whether it's malfeasance, whether it's non-feasance? I'm practically giving it to you for you to clear it out for me. When you allege negligence, you'd have to be very clear on it.
Your Lordship, we would, with points that Your Lordship had stated, we would contend misfeasance. That is, they had not done it properly.
Go on.
The council would like to throw light upon continuing the argument of the previous council. That is, in the case of McKee versus National Corporation Board, it was stated that it does not matter if the plaintiff had done everything. If the defendant was negligent in not providing something that could have reasonably been foreseen, the plaintiff can say that it has materially increased the risk, and therefore the liability is not on the plaintiff. With that, the council submits the argument of act of God and would like to submit that the defendants cannot take the defense of act of God. Moving on to the fourth issue concerning voluntary non-fit injuria. In the present case, voluntary non-fit injuria and contributory negligence overlap. So the council would be dealing with both briefly. So coming to voluntary non-fit injuria, in the landmark case of Letang versus Ottawa, it was a few elements were laid down. If they have been complied with, the defense of voluntary non-fit injuria can be established. So the council will be refuting these elements independently. The first element being the petitioner has to freely and voluntarily, with full nature and knowledge of the extent and nature of the risk she ran, and she should have agreed to run the risk impliedly or expressly. In the present case, Your Lordship, Laura had come onto the island with the expectation that the defendant, that is XLTV, a huge host, conducting a show in such an island which is so remote for 12 weeks with 12 participants, would take reasonable care in providing the basic amenities, whereas the defendant had acted negligently here. Your Lordships, as Your Lordships had already asked, did Laura take any precautions? Your Lordships, it has to be stated that what the defendants had told Laura was only the location of the Paradise Island. And as it can be seen, it was very remote. So Laura could not have had all the information about Paradise Island, as it is not to give an into an Andaman Island where people actually visit. There were less tourists. It was remote. So it was hard for Laura to collect information as well. She was not aware of the risk. Whereas the defendant, on the other hand, as has already been stated, from May to July. Yes,
Counsel, as a reasonable person,
yes, Lordship.
she should have anticipated these kind of difficulties there, because even she is not aware. The defendant also might not have been aware of all this. We will forget about that now. At least in your client's case, she should have been taken care.
Your Lordship, as my co-counsel has already spoken, she could have taken precautions only for cold or fever. She could not have taken precaution for bacterial infection, which is specific to that island, Your Lordship. Information was not available. It is not fair to expect a participant to know everything. It is reasonable to expect the host to know everything and take care of it. So moving on to the contributory negligence part, Your Lordship, generally in the law of torts, when it comes to contributory negligence, the major principle that is used is the last opportunity rule. And the defendants may claim that or not, but the counsel would like to establish that this last opportunity rule is inadequate. And in the case of British Columbia Electric Co. versus Loach, a new principle, not a new principle, and improvised version of this principle, that is the constructive last opportunity rule, had come into play. So what this constructive last opportunity rule says is that it does not matter who had the last opportunity to avert the accident, if not for the defendant's negligence. So here, even the defendants may claim that by remaining silent, Laura had brought on the consequences upon herself. But here, it does not matter if Laura had the last opportunity or not, because the defendants were negligent. But the counsel would also like to submit that Laura did not have the last opportunity because she was not aware of the risk and she had behaved as a reasonable person. Therefore, the defendants cannot claim the defense of contributory negligence, Your Lordships. Do Your Lordships have any queries to make?
Now, how do you claim that you need to be compensated for the negligence? Well, you do state that you had swelling and pain and high fever, which led to laryngitis and all of it. How did that in turn affect your work, or how did that in turn affect you in a manner that you would need to prove that the negligence was of a certain consequence, that it affected your work in turn?
Your Lordship has asked this question at the right time. The counsel was just about to move on to the damages, where all these questions will be held with under different heads and will be explained more explicitly, Your Lordship. So can I answer the question along with the submissions, Your Lordship?
No problem. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Much obliged, Your Lordships. So coming to the final and fifth submission, that is regarding damages. So this will be dealt with under 4 contentions. Firstly, regarding medical loss. Secondly, regarding loss of revenue on account of cancellation of tort. And thirdly, with regard to loss of income. And fourthly, with regard to pain and suffering. So before moving on to all these arguments, before moving on to all these arguments, the counsel would like to explain what the nature of acute laryngitis was. And to have a medical backing for that, the researcher of the team has shared the screen, Your Lordships. So if Your Lordships may see, what is laryngitis? Laryngitis is an illness which affects the larynx, that is, the upper tract of the plaintiff. And if symptoms persist, it can have a major impact on the physical health, quality of life, and even psychological well-being. So, as we have understood what acute laryngitis is, Your Lordship, the counsel would like to explain the very poor state of our client, that is the plaintiff, Miss Laura. Your Lordships, it has to be seen that in the para 4, Laura, the talents of Laura have been explained. She was the singing sensation of the year 2019. She had done various tours. She had a huge fan following, and she had made her mark in the music industry. So it can be very well presumed, and it was time. She even had an upcoming global tour. So it can very well be presumed that she had a very bright and prospectful future ahead of her. And all these have come down because of the negligent actions, and all the forthcoming contentions have been made under this slide. That is, acute laryngitis may not affect a normal person in the way it affects a singer, Your Lordship. The plaintiff here was a singer. Her daily earning job was singing. And if she is left incoherent of speech, how is she supposed to continue on with her life? So coming on to the first contention relating to medical expense, the counsel would like to submit that Laura, as Your Lordship had asked the question, the counsel would answer it right now. That is, Laura had developed the symptoms, that is redness, rashes, and swelling after coming on to the show after 2 weeks. So it can be seen in para 9 that it took some time for the medical team to arrive, which shows that if it had not taken, it is reasonable to assume, Your Lordship, if it had not taken that time, maybe her injuries could not have been aggravated to that level. And the defendant could have avoided this aggravation of injuries by having an onshore medical team. And the defendant did not do that also. So, assuming that her injuries could have been aggravated in the delay by the medical team, then she was shifted to the hospital where she was given treatment for a few days. So, let's take by 2 weeks, it was around the 15th of July. So, a couple of days.
Counsel.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Counsel, one doubt here. So, a doubt, not a real
Yes,
question
Lordship.
to you.
Yes, Your Lordship.
See, a person can be sick,
Yes, Your Lordship.
maybe some infection. But
Yes,
could you
sir.
ever imagine that it will lead to such a big issue of losing the voice or interrupting with her
Yeah.
capability of talking, singing, and all that? It's a too remote a possibility, isn't it?
Your Lordship has rightly pointed it out that it may seem that acute laryngitis is not foreseeable, but Your Lordship, if you may see para 9, Laura had developed acute laryngitis owing to bacterial infection. The important term is owing to. So had they avoided bacterial infection, they don't even have to think about the future consequences that may come. They have to just perform their duty by providing basic things, not even specialized doctors. We were asking for a basic medical team on the island, Your Lordships, given the nature of the show.
Let's just get into this aspect of did she enter the show in her capacity as a singer, or did she enter the reality show as a capacity as just a participant who is known to be a singer?
Your Lordship, the Council would like to answer by drawing Your Lordship's attention to para 2, where it is shown that they had included both celebrity contestants and normal contestants. So Laura had not come would not come under normal contestants because, as the Council has already explained, the huge talent and prospectful career of
We are not on that. We are aware that she's a celebrity and she's in the show as a celebrity singer.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Similarly, I will repeat the question.
Yes, Your Lordship.
When she comes in her capacity as a singer, then you can talk about the liability as a result of laryngitis which is affected. If she's come into the show fully aware that she's not coming as a singer but as a participant, can you sue that her career as a singer is affected when you very well join the show as a non-singer?
Your Lordship, if a normal contestant had come and they had contracted bacterial infection and that had led on to something else, then the issues would have been different, because acute laryngitis affects Laura in a different way and a normal person in a different way, Your Lordship.
So maybe I asked your co-counsel earlier, she may have some special physical condition which has aggravated her problem.
Your Lordship, as my co-counsel has already explained, that the eggshell skull rule comes into picture. That is, it does not matter if Laura was predisposed. Your Lordship, the council would also like to support this with a case law, Your Lordship. In Dulio versus White, a person had a weak skull and a weak heart, and the defendant had done something to harm the person. If it was a normal person, he would have only suffered like normal damage or something. But here, as he was already having weak heart, the jury had held that it does not matter if he had a weak heart. The defendant has to take the plaintiff as he is. Even if he had a weak heart, he has to take as he is. And it has been held in the court, Your Lordships. It is of persuasive value. It is humbly pleaded that this jury may please take into consideration.
Yes.
What are the cases in India that have actually given, when you've sued for damages and there have been held that it's a view of negligence and compensated them?
Your Lordships, in the Indian jurisdiction, there are various cases which deal with accident, the accident which has happened negligently. For example, a bus coming and the person not seeing beforehand whether the bus is coming and then they're getting injured. The compensation has been given for medical expense and pain and suffering as well, Your Lordship. This will be dealt with under the fourth contention. So, may I please move on, Your Lordship? Have your Lordship's queries been answered?
No, they haven't. You haven't answered with respect to negligence. Compensation with respect to negligence as opposed to an accident. What we
Your
asked you
Lordship,
specifically was judgments on the Indian context with respect to negligence and compensation. Because you
okay,
dealt.
Your Lordship, the council would like to state the case of Arvind Kumar Mishra versus New India Associate Co Limited. So in this case, what had happened was there was this appellant, that is Arvind Kumar. He was a student of engineering. And then what had happened was in an accident, he was injured because of the negligent driving of a truck. So the aspect of negligence has come into picture. And then
We're not dealing with. No. That's not an area of negligence. You can't go into motor vehicles, none of that. That's a completely different area of negligence. I'm sorry. We're talking about negligence with respect to corporation. There are enough judgments with respect to Delhi High Courts on this.
Your Lordships, can I explain those in the rebuttal time, Your Lordships? Due to paucity of time, can I finish my submissions now? Thank you very much, Your Lordships. So coming on to the global tour issue, a chain of events has already been established that if not for the negligent basic amenities provided by defendants, Laura would not have developed a bacterial infection, owing to which she developed acute laryngitis, which left her incoherent of speech, and she had to cancel her tour. Your Lordships may ask that she was the one who cancelled the tour, but Your Lordship, it has to be taken into consideration that the tour was of global nature. She could not have cancelled it in the end of December or anything. It takes a huge of preparation to prepare for a global tour. Therefore, she had to take the decision then and there. Coming on to the issue of loss of revenue, Your Lordships, the damages claimed for global tour are starting from January to whenever the global tour was to end, whereas the loss for revenue is asked for the period of from mid-July to December, that is from when she was hospitalized to December, as she was left incoherent of speech, let alone the art of singing. She could not do any income generating activity. Therefore, we are asking damages for that. Coming to the last contention relating to pain and suffering, the council would like to submit that Laura, having this huge bright future, was justified in having hopes and dreams of making it global. But all of these came crashing down because of the defendant's negligent act. Your Lordship, pain suffered by Laura, if I may take just a minute, Your Lordships.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, obliged, Your Lordships. So Laura had this pain and suffering incurred by Laura is very grave indeed. Therefore, the defendant is liable to pay all the damages sought by the plaintiff. With that, I conclude my submissions. May I move on to the prayer, Your Lordships?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Much obliged, Your Lordships. Therefore, in the light of facts stated, cases cited, issues raised, and arguments advanced, it is most humbly prayed and implored before this Honorable City Civil Court of Bengaluru that it may be graciously pleased to adjudge that first, the defendant was negligent in his actions, and second, the plaintiff is entitled to damages as sought. Also pass any other order that the court may deem fit to meet the ends of equity in favor of the plaintiff, to meet the ends of equity, justice, and good conscience. For this act of kindness, the plaintiff shall duty bound forever pray. Thank you very much, Your Lordships, for your gracious extension of time. It was an honor arguing before this court. Thank you, Your Lordships.
Could we move on to the other side?
Yes.
Greetings to the bench. If the bench permits, the council may address the bench as Your Lordships. If Your Lordships are well...
Just 1 minute. You're not fully visible.
Am I visible now?
You should
Anything about this, right?
slightly keep the camera down.
Is it fine, Your Lordships?
Yeah. No, can you put your camera a little lower? See, what happens is the ticker down in our laptops takes away half of you.
Yes.
So we get to see only half your face.
Your Lordship, am I visible now?
Yes.
Now, yes. Okay.
Righto, go ahead.
Shall I proceed, Your Lordship?
Yes, please.
Yes, yes.
If Your Lordships are well versed with the facts, the council may proceed to the arguments advance.
Go ahead.
In the arguments advanced, the counsel will be speaking the first and the second issue, and my co-counsel will be speaking the third and the fourth issue. If your lordship permits, the counsel may proceed.
Go ahead.
Your lordship, it is most humbly submitted that the plaintiff is guilty of contributory negligence. In the case of Frown versus Butcher, it was stated that contributory negligence is a man's carelessness in looking after his own safety. If your lordship permit, the counsel may proceed with the first sub-issue of the first issue. Indeed.
Yes, please.
Your lordship, that it should be noted that the damages caused to the plaintiff is due to her own negligence, and therefore the defendant should not be held liable for the damages caused to the plaintiff. A plaintiff guilty of contributory negligence when he or she has by his own want of care so far contributed to the damages occasioned by the negligence or improper conduct of the defendant that but for want of care the defendant would not have occurred.
No, just counsel, you listen to your own argument now, because contributory negligence doesn't take away your negligence part. It may affect only the compensation or the remedy, and your liability is liability only. It will remain as a liability. What are the precautions that you have taken to safeguard all the interest of the participants?
Your lordship,
and we understand that it was a remote and uninhabited place, and nobody knew. Did you know anything about this area?
Your lordship, one of the negligences that the counsel can contend is the negligence of unforeseeability of the disease of acute laryngitis that the plaintiff was suffering.
Could you envisage or foresee any damage?
Your lordship,
No,
one of the your lordship, if the counsel, if you permit, the counsel may proceed.
Proceed, please proceed.
Your lordship, one of the negligence on the part of the defendant was they could not foresee the symptom of acute laryngitis as it is expected from the contestants to get themselves vaccinated. Your lordship, there's a vaccine called DPT, that is diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, which ensures that no person shall be affected with the disease of laryngitis, and it is one of the mandatory vaccine that a person should get themselves vaccinated also. If we see the Indian immunization schemes and the national immunization schemes, it is mentioned that the vaccine of diphtheria should be get vaccinated to every child.
Okay.
As the researcher has presented about the universal scheme, in which it explicitly shows that the DPS vaccines shall get vaccinated to all the people, as it is one of the mandatory vaccinations which is being suggested from the government also. If your lordships permit, the counsel may proceed.
Yes, please.
Move on.
If your lordship permit, the counsel may proceed with the second sub-issue of the first issue.
Yes.
The second sub-issue is the defendant had maintained a standard of care. It is humbly submitted that the defendant had maintained a standard of care as the plaintiff had prior intimation regarding the location of the shoot for the reality show, and it was specifically stated that the entire show was to be shot at a remotely secluded, sparse inhabited island called the Paradise Land. Therefore, it was a duty of the plaintiff to take necessary precautions accordingly, such as getting herself already vaccinated, as it was earlier stated by the counsel. Your lordship, if you may refer to para 7 of page 2 of the arguments advanced, it is important to note that the defendant had maintained the set standard of care as necessary. Also, all necessary and plausible care and precautions were taken. And when the defendant had the knowledge upon the development of Laura's infection, the medical team was called as soon as possible by the defendants without any delay, your lordship. But it is only expected, your lordship, that an island being a remote one, the medical time would have taken some reasonable time to reach there. And she was provided with all the medical care and facility, the basic medical care and facilities by the defendant before getting shifted to the hospital. Also, your lordship, as a matter of fact, the rooms that they were stayed were not fumigated only to avoid any other danger, which according to any reasonable man is more common than the disease of cutaneous diphtheria. Your lordship, if you may see paragraph 8 of page 3 of the argument advanced, the counsel would also like to contend that, just a second, yes, your lordship, as we knew in the present situation, the wake of the global crisis, that is the COVID-19, we saw that there was an upsurge of using the fumigation techniques to contain the diseases, like various private agencies and companies were providing door-to-door facilities. Even the government tankers and vehicles were seen pouring down huge amount of disinfectants. The consequence of fumigation was such hazardous and ineffective that the WHO in the situational report, 15th situational report, clearly stated that the instruction for fumigation and misting is not recommended. If your lordship permit the council, the researcher can open the WHO report, which explicitly states this fact.
I think you can skip that.
Is that a
We'll
brief?
read that later.
All I want to know. Sorry, please go on. Please go on. I'll ask next.
Your lordship, can you repeat your question, please?
Okay, then I think you answer the question and proceed forward.
Your ladyship, do you have any question?
Yes, all I want to know is, wasn't that a primary breach of your duty?
Your ladyship, one of the reasons why fumigation was avoided was to prevent a greater harm of it. As we knew that having we done the fumigation, there might be some other ill effects and harmful effects to the other contestants as well.
Is that set forth by you anywhere?
It's not explicitly stated in the moot proposition, but your ladyship, as we knew that it was a remote secluded island and the concept of the show was regarding back to nature, and as we knew that the shooting was at a natural habitat.
Yes. Back to Nature program was organized in a place which is, according to your own words, at a remote area. In the remote area, if you do that, what is the precaution that you have taken? One,
Why?
you said that the medical
Yes.
team arrived only on the reporting.
No,
It was late.
specifically the question to you as Dr. Face is, why was there no medical care present at that spot? Please answer us to the point on that.
Your lordship, it should be noted that if we already had an ambulance present there, it would have taken the same time to getting Laura shifted to the same place as the.
Who prevented you from getting an ambulance there?
Your
When
lordship.
you choose a location, you should have taken all the necessary precautions. You are taking human beings there. Even animals cannot be taken without any precaution nowadays. Then you have taken human beings and asked them to be there in a particular remote area without any medical assistance or any other assistance there. Then you are saying that it is because of somebody else's fault. You have to be responsible for your action, isn't it?
Your lordship, the council would like to state that the defendant had maintained the basic medical first aid, and it was not foreseeable that Laura would develop acute laryngitis, and also it could not foreseeably expected from the defendant to maintain a specialized team of doctors at a remote place. As we just earlier stated that it was a remote island, it was not possible for the defendants to maintain a specialized team of doctors which are specialized in the various fields.
What is the test of foreseeability? What is the test of foreseeability?
Foreseeability, yes.
If your ladyship may refer to the case of, if your ladyship may refer to page 5 of the arguments advanced, paragraph 17, in the case of Oversea Tankship Limited versus the Miller Steam Company, the foreseeability test was given. The findings were that damage were foreseeable when it was reached on the following conclusion. First, there was a real risk, although remote. Second, the risk was great in nature, as a reasonable man would have known the gravity of the risk. Fourth, the action to eliminate risk presently had no difficulty. Your lordships, the action that was needed to be taken care to avoid the risk of infection was fumigation of doom, and the implant of the same had many harmful effects, which would have definitely have exposed the other countries in effect. It is foreseeable that harmful fumes will affect the health of everybody. Instead of giving weightage to the risk of infection, which is now so rare, and the vaccine has been developed many years ago, as the disease of laryngitis was something that was very prevalent in the 1900s.
Did you insist?
When I asked you what is that, please go on. Sorry.
Did you ensure that your participants have taken all these kinds of vaccinations?
Your lordship, it is
the documents. Yes.
Your lordship, it is reasonably expected, as the council stated earlier, that the DPH vaccine is one of the mandatory vaccines that the contestants should have been vaccinated. during the.
In the contract, I think you did not insist on any of these things. Now you can't claim that. You have missed out that. You did not ask any of them to comply with certain things.
Counsel, when I asked you a test of foreseeability, I expect you to tell me that the test of foreseeability is 1, 2, 3, and these are the things that we have adhered to.
Exactly.
And the case of the plaintiff comes outside the purview of the test of foreseeability because I have taken due precautions. I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with respect to this being a remote island. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the test of foreseeability, and I don't hear that answer from you.
Your Lordship, the defendant had taken all the reasonable measures and the ordinary prudence that would a reasonable standard of professional person would have been taken. But as we knew that the bacteria was common, but the disease of laryngitis was unforeseeable in its nature.
Go on, let's proceed.
Indeed, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, if you refer to paragraph 18 of the page 6 of the arguments advance, it is mentioned that if a man is injured in such a way that his injury may give an amount, he must have reasonably and carefully. It is quite possible that in spite of all reasonable care, his injury may give to such circumstances that as a result, he may sustain further injury. However, if an injured man acts unreasonably, he cannot hold the defendant liable for the injury caused by his own unreasonable conduct. And therefore, his own reasonable conduct becomes novus actus inter veniis.
All right, so you pause there and tell me what was it that they acted against their own interest?
Indeed, Your Lordship.
That very line that you read, please put the plaintiff within that meaning.
One of the things, Your Lordship, that should be noted that the plaintiff was silent about the fact that she was facing some discomfort. Your Lordship, it should be noted that a person's health cannot be put in front of your reputation, goodwill, and credibility. Our health is the most important aspect in today's time. And Laura, if she was facing any sort of discomfort, she should have informed the defendant at the earliest opportunity. And though her disease may not get cured easily, but it would have been prevented at a very, very early stage by the defendants.
Go on.
Indeed, Your Lordship. If Your Lordship permit, the counsel may proceed with the second sub-issue. That is, the defendant's act was not but for cause for plaintiff's injury. The defendant's act was not but for factor because even in XLTV had taken due care, the plaintiff still would have contracted diseases as there were many other factors responsible for the disease, and only those factors which fulfill the criteria for but-for test is considered as cause. As we knew, Your Lordship, the format of the show was back in nature, and generally the shooting used to be conducted at an outdoor spot. But if not in the facilities of the accommodation, the plaintiff Laura would have contracted with the diseases outside during the shoot of the show. Also, the principle of sign cause non states that if a result would not have happened for certain, that the event is cause. Contrary, it would not have happened anyway, and the event is not a cause. Your Lordship and Ladyship, if you see the case of Barnett versus Chelsea Committee, in this case,
I'll stop you there. First things first, there's no such thing as ladyship. In all your moot courts from here on, you will have to realize that a ladyship is not equivalent to that of a lordship. So now, especially with an all-women semi-finals, you should be more than aware that a lady can be referred to as a lord. And the meaning of a ladyship is not the female gender of a lordship. All right?
Indeed, the counsel.
It will end up being a wife of a whatever. A ladyship does not mean an equivalent of a lordship. Never make this mistake, especially when you have an all-women semi-finals. All right? The reference to lordships would always be gender-free, gender-neutral.
Indeed, Your Lordship.
Please proceed.
Your Lordship, if you may permit, the counsel may proceed with the case stated.
Yes.
That was Barnett versus Chelsea. In this case, the claimant's husband called in early in the morning at the defendant's hospital and complained of puking after having tea. He was told to go home and consult his doctor later, which though amounted a breach on the part of hospital as it was a duty of care. And also the husband later died of arsenic poisoning. But the hospital was not held negligence. Even if the disease had been examined and treated with proper care, the probability was that he would have died anyway. If we apply the facts and the ratio of this case, even the defendant had the rooms fumigated, there were higher probabilities that the plaintiff would have gotten affected with the infection, owing to the fact that he was not vaccinated and the island was a common hub, as it was stated by the council earlier. The council rests its case. Now, if your lordships have any questions, the council.
Oh, as my lord has also asked you before, isn't the onus on you to verify whether somebody is vaccinated or not before taking them to an island? Doesn't that come within your purview of verification? Due diligence.
Your lordships, it was expected that the contestants would have been vaccinated, as the vaccinated has been mandatory, and the national immunization scheme also states that these vaccinations are to be vaccinated in the months of 16 to 24 years of a human life's age. So it was expected by the contestant, and the defendant had seen that the vaccinations, the contestant would be vaccinated with the particular vaccine, that of the DPH.
Okay, so you're going on assumption.
Indeed, your lordship.
All right.
Yes.
So shall we move on to the next?
Any other point for you to raise? Council 1, do you have any other point to raise or any other
No,
submission?
your lordship. No, your lordship. The council has contended.
Yes, we can move on to the next council.
Greetings to the bench. This is the second counsel on behalf of the defendants. If the council shall deal with the third and fourth issue respectively. If your lordships permit, may the council proceed with the third issue.
Yes.
Please go.
The third issue is that it is most humbly submitted that the defendants can plead the defense of vis major over here, as the damages caused to Laura were unforeseeable in nature. The term vis major can be defined as any accident due directly or exclusively to natural causes without any human intervention, which by no amount of foresight, pains, or care reasonably to be expected could have been prevented. The act of God defense generally requires the unforeseeability of reasonable human intelligence and the absence of human agency causing the alleged damage. The test is whether or not the eventuality is likely or probable, but whether it is foreseeable. One important question, whether it is in light of foreseeability of the risk, is that whether the defendants could have done anything to avert to stop the impact of that. In the present case, it should be noted that the injuries to Laura were unforeseeable in nature. Why? Because, first of all, laryngitis is in most common circumstances a viral disease. Secondly, it is very rare that laryngitis can be caused by bacterial infection. And thirdly, it is even more unforeseeable that laryngitis can be caused by a bacterial infection that is cutaneous, as what Laura developed was cutaneous diphtheria. If your lordship permit, may the council present the document stating that laryngitis it is very rare that laryngitis can be caused by bacterial infection, and remote that it can be caused by cutaneous bacterial infection.
Please go ahead.
Yes, your lordship.
Now, if you are,
Yes, your lordship. Yes, your lordship. As it is stated that acute laryngitis over here is generally resulted from a viral infection that causes edema of the vocal cords. And over here, below this, it is stated that acute laryngitis is rare in the era of vaccination, but no one may encounter the case of acute diphtheria in unimmunized population. And it is to be noted that vaccination is vaccination is available for the same. So that is why it was very unforeseeable for the defendants to foresee that a person from such background and such celebrities will not be vaccinated against something that is even mandated by the government. Also, it is even rare that it can be happen. Yes, Your Lordship.
One question. You said that government mandated certain precautionary steps. Some
Yes, Your Lordship.
immunization are mandatory. In such
Yes, Your
an
Lordship.
instance, if government is insisting on certain things, did you ensure that you are also seeking that this should be completely complied with by all the contestants and your team? Your team also.
Your Lordship, it should be noted. Yeah, Your Lordship, it should be noted that this vaccine, that is DPT, which is also for tetanus, that is usually we can expect that taken by everyone in this population because it is so propagated by the government, should be taken at a very early stage of 3 to 28 months of age, then I think below 5 years of age, and so on, and at a very early age. So it was expected by the defendants that so people from...
One second. You also said in between that
Yes,
even a tetanus toxin injection was not available with your team because no medical facility was there with your team because your records are showing that you were not at all prepared for any exigency. Forget about a very serious exigency, but even for a mild thing, you are going to have the habitation for a couple of weeks, and there you can expect any sort of some injury, physical injury. And if somebody gets a cut on the body, there should be some kind of a ATS injection facility available. You are not prepared for anything. You have to wait for the medical team to arrive, and it took time. So you were negligent.
Your Lordship,
Okay, is it your case that if somebody is already vaccinated, they will not stand the risk of catching this?
Your Lordship, the possibility is very, very, very minimum, and that it is therefore
so it is possible. It's not impossible, it is possible.
Any vaccination for that matter does not give you 100% assurance that you cannot catch that disease in any worst case scenario also, but it is always expected. We all get vaccinated on the belief that we won't be catching the disease, right? That is what vaccinations are for.
One second. Do you know that you have a duty to take care?
Yes, Your
Before you
Lordship.
say that others should take care.
Yes, Your Lordship.
You should have taken care.
Yes.
What is their duty then?
Your Lordship, it should be noted that the facts are silent about the medical team being over there. It is not. It is to be noted that we had the basic first aid kit available over there, but it is not possible to maintain a set of specialized doctor that is especially for a dermatologist. As Laura developed was cutaneous diphtheria. That is why it is not possible for us to maintain a dermatologist, cardiologist, ophthalmologist, and every specialized doctor. The basic first aid kit with betadine and
Your duty.
A first aid kit does not mean that you have a general physician there. We're talking about you admitting that you only had a first aid kit there and you did not have an ambulance for immediate relief. So which means that you did not have even a general physician there. So you can not argue on the fact that you didn't have specialists there. Is it your case that you had general physicians there on site? It isn't your case.
The facts are silent about this, that having a general physician or not.
You need to convince us that there was no negligence. How are you going to convince us on the fact that there was no negligence?
Your Lordship, it should be noted that the amount of time taken for the medical team to reach here was only minimal, and a certain amount of time which can be only expected because of the remoteness of the island. For supposedly, even if we had an ambulance present over there, there wasn't a hospital to be built in the nearby location.
It always has immediate relief care with the trained personnel there, which would be the nurses or a duty doctor would be in the ambulance. And as you know, always immediate first aid or CPR is always given. So you can't say, somebody had a heart attack, even otherwise he would have died, because the time for the ambulance taken to go to the hospital, he would have anyway died. You always do CPR first. That is done by trained professionals in the ambulance. So we're talking about you failing in your duty to provide immediate relief.
Yes.
Your Lordship, it is to be noted that what Laura developed here was acute diphtheria, and for that, a general physician might not have been helpful because that needs a skin specialist over there, and that is why we could not have it. Although we maintained a first aid kit, we did not have the ambulance because of the remoteness of the hospital itself. It would have taken the same amount of time for the doctor to reach over here as equal to the time that was required by us to take the patient to the hospital, which was the distance was the same over here.
How would she need a skin specialist?
Because what she developed was a skin diphtheria. So at the first instance, it should be diagnosed by dermatologist only when you get rashes over your body and all. It is what is expected from a reasonable human being to go to a dermatologist if you're having rashes.
All these arguments on this kind of maybe some kind of factual issues will not take you anywhere. It will not take you out of the duty. You have a duty, and how will you say that I don't have any duty and the participants have the responsibility? You have a duty to be fulfilled before you ask them that it is your problem. I have taken care of.
I want you to address your arguments specifically on the fact that there is no negligence, there was complete due care, and other participants were not affected. You need to convince the court that there has been no negligence on your part, and even if it is misfeasance, because there was an argument by the other side that it was misfeasance, so you would have to counter that and explain to us how misfeasance would not be applicable to you. Please proceed.
Your Lordship, over here, the elements of negligence usually are foreseeable, but the one major element of negligence is foreseeability over here. And as we contended that it was not foreseeable for us that a viral infection, which is usually a viral infection, can be developed by a bacterial infection, that is skin infection. And
this argument cannot be accepted.
Also, it should
This
be noted,
argument cannot be accepted.
it should be noted, my lords, that there was no other contestant whatsoever who had complained about the same kind of bacterial infection or cutaneous diphtheria for that matter. It was the plaintiff who was negligent in not getting vaccinated against it, even when the remoteness and the specifications of the island were informed to the plaintiff over here. If any one of there was no other contestant who complained about the same.
Would you have any judgments in support of your case where if it was a stray case of just one person getting affected, it would be on the cause of their own negligence and not on your part? Are you able to support it with anything?
Your Lordship, the council seeks a bare minimum amount of time. Your Lordship,
you have to come prepared on a specific case or not on a general case. You would have to convince us as to how in other cases negligence was not attributed to you in view of the fact that nobody else was affected and it was only the plaintiff.
Your Lordship, the council seeks ignorance.
Please proceed.
Which takes us to the fourth issue, that is the defendant are not liable to pay the damages claimed by the plaintiff. It is most humbly submitted that the plaintiff must give the best evidence to prove the damages. In furtherance to this, the defendants submit that, number one, the defendants are not liable for the pecuniary damages to the plaintiff, and number two, that the defendants are not liable to pay the non-pecuniary damages. Moving on to the issue of pecuniary damages claimed by the plaintiff, it is in furtherance to this, the defendant submits that, number one, the amount claimed by medical expenses is unreasonable. Number two, the defendants are not liable to compensate for the global tour. Number three, the defendants are not liable for the loss of income. Your Lordship, the council seeks permission to move ahead with the second contention first.
Please go on.
It is to be noted that the defendants are not liable to compensate for the loss of global tour caused to the plaintiff. How is it so? It is because that it is submitted that the award must be fair and reasonable and by accepted legal standards. and all elements requiring the consideration must be viewed with objective standards. Though Excel Telefilms believe that Laura would have made the country proud by taking the global tour, it is to be noted that, as a matter of fact, laryngitis is an inflammation of vocal cords and it usually goes away by itself within 1 to 2 weeks. Acute laryngitis over here is a mild, self-limiting condition that typically lasts for a period of 3 to 7 days. If this condition lasts over 3 weeks, it is called chronic laryngitis, and the mood proposition explicitly says that what Laura had was acute laryngitis and not chronic laryngitis. So we can very well establish that she got cured within 3 months. Had it been 3 weeks, had it been more than 3 weeks, the problem would have stated chronic laryngitis, which takes us to the fact that the global tour, Laura was in talks with GMT. There was no mention of any specific contract over there. Laura was in talks with GMT, and the tour was scheduled on January 2020, and she was to be free by the end of November 2019. Now, as a matter of fact, our show began on 1st of July 2019. Laura developed acute laryngitis within the 2 weeks of starting of the show. That is 13th to 14th of July. As the show started on 1st of July, Laura developed the infection. Now, it took some time for the medical team to arrive. It can be inferred that maximum 1 or 2 days under every possible circumstances, as the mood problem says some time and not some days or couple of days. Now, after which Laura was shifted to a hospital for the next couple of days, which we can infer 3 to 5 days, or even to widen the ambit, we shall consider it to be 7 cases, 7 days or a week or so. So she developed the same around 20th. So she developed laryngitis around 20th to 21st July after getting admitted to the hospital. Now, it is most important to note that what Laura had over here was acute laryngitis, and it goes away within itself with 1 to 2 weeks. And even in the worst case scenario, it cannot be extended more than 3 weeks, as it will be chronic laryngitis, but the mood problem says it to be acute laryngitis. Laura's global tour was from January 2020. She was to be free by the end of November 2019. There is a gap of 3.5 months from 15th of August till the time of November 2019. And 15th August is the date when it showed by itself. So that is why neither laryngitis, as a matter of fact, nor the defendants are liable to pay even a single penny for the loss of a global tour. With this, the council seeks permission to move ahead with the third point, that is, the defendants are not even liable to pay for the loss of income caused to plaintiff. As a matter of fact, as established in the previous issue, that laryngitis would have been cured within the 15th of August, even if we widen the ambit and take a very liberal interpretation. It is to be noted that this was a binding contract over Laura. Coming to the Back to Nature show with Excel Telefilms. The contract was for 12 weeks. If she could have stayed on the show, it was for the 12 weeks. So it can be assumed that for this 12 weeks of time, Laura would have been free, and there wouldn't have been no prior commitments for that, which means till the time of October. And Laura would have been cured by the mid of August. So there was no loss of income whatsoever, as she was there present in that show, and had it, even she was hale and hearty, she would have been the show itself. That is why we are not even liable for pay of any loss of income over here. Which takes us to the first point again, that the medical amount that Laura is claiming we are not liable to pay for that. How? Because number one, there was no chain of causation formed over here. Number second, the mitigation of damages should be reasonable. And number three, that the damages caused to plaintiff are unforeseeable. Moving to the point of chain of causation, it is generally accepted for this is the but-for test, as mentioned by my co-counselor, Barnett versus Chelsea. It is to be noted that even it is well established that even if the defendants did not have the rooms fumigated, only to avoid the greater risk of the diseases that can be caused by fumigation of the rooms, inclusive of asthma, which is a lifelong disease, as explained in the causation issue, Laura would have still developed the infection of cutaneous diphtheria. How? Because she did not get vaccinated, and most of the shoot was outside the accommodation. The time that Laura had to spend in the accommodations was bare minimum, and even if she was not vaccinated, she would have caught the disease anyway. But for test will be applicable here because the shoot was outside the location, and the bacterial infection was very common in the eye. Also, it is to be noted that when a plaintiff injury is attributable to a number of causes, including the defendant's negligence, the combination of the breach of duty by the defendant and the plaintiff's injury does not give rise to any presumption that the defendant's negligence caused or materially contributed to the injury, and the burden of proving so is laid upon the plaintiff. And over here, Laura remaining silent further aggravated the disease, as had she been vocal about at the very first instance, medical team would have arrived much sooner. And as the document presented by my opposite counsel, it was stated, there was a sentence mentioned over here that acute laryngitis is diagnosed and managed at the primary level. So, had she been vocal, it would have managed much more sooner. Which takes us to the point that the mitigation of damages were unreasonable over here. Though accidental defense is very sorry for what Laura had to go through, but after admitting, sorry, Your Lordship, the counsel wants to contend something else. Not speaking in spite of discomfort, especially when the disease could have been cured at the earliest opportunity, had she been vocal, is a sign of not acting with due diligence. And Laura's silence was not only harmful for her, but for other contestants also, because this disease is contagious and spreadable. Laryngitis is easily communicable disease, and so is cutaneous diphtheria. So she risked all of us at the danger of spreading of that disease. And Laura could have very well avoided the trouble, firstly by getting vaccinated as a prevention of her own on her own part, because we cannot get vaccinated at the age of an adult age, because it should have been done at a very early stage of life. And the defendant are not liable for the loss suffered by plaintiff in consequence of her so acting. Though Excel Telefilms is very sorry for what Laura had to go through, but it is to be noted that after admitting Laura to the hospital, as much as we wanted to do something for her, the matter was out of our hands, because the production house are no medical experts or no medical doctors over here. And as contended in the issue of vis major, the damages over here were were unforeseeable. And in the case of SS Edison case, that is Libbs-Bloch Dejo versus Edison, same case, UK House of Lords, it was held that the case of in this case, the Dejo was negligently damaged and sunk by the owner of the of Edison, and they needed the dragger to fulfill a contract. But here it was held that the contract was unforeseeable and only a replacement of a. The council seeks permission to.
Go ahead.
Yes, Your Lordship. It is to be noted that the principle that was held in this case was the damages cannot be attributed to the defendants ad infinitum, right? Laura is suing us for the development of cutaneous for the infection, and then development of laryngitis, and then cancellation of her tour, and then loss of income, and the probable cancellation of tour as she was in talks with GMT, which was due on God knows how many months ago. This is not she cannot ask for us to pay for the same. With this, the council seeks permission to move ahead with the last sub-issue, that is, the plaintiff is not entitled to get any non-pecuniary damages as well. That it is submitted that it is the non-pecuniary damages claimed by the plaintiff are unnecessary quantification of damages. Why? The amount of compensation that is awarded over here must be reasonable and must be assessed with moderation. But 20 lakh rupees for the pain caused by laryngitis is a not reasonable amount, as it is not a serious disease. As stated and showed in the document, it can be cured by even home remedies and by taking proper rest within 3 to 7 days. So 20 lakh is a very high quantification of the damages. Also, the plaintiff has claimed non-pecuniary damages on the ground. One of the major ground is the loss of her beloved dream and the loss of her career. It is to be noted, as established earlier, that GMT was not responsible for the loss of global tour, because there was a wide gap of 3.5 months between her getting cured and the concert. It is to be noted that we are not similarly responsible for the loss of her dream also. For the same. With this, the council rests her case and seeks the permission to move forward with the prayer. Your Lordship. Yes, Your Lordship. Therefore, in the lights of the facts stated, the case is cited, issues raised, arguments advanced, and the authority is cited, it is most humbly prayed and implored before the Honorable City Civil Court at Bangalore that it may be graciously pleased to adjudge and declare that, number one, the plaintiff is liable for contributory negligence, and the plaintiff is not entitled to get any damages as they were not because of any of the faults of the defendant, and they were unforeseeable under the ground of due to vis major. Also, pass any other order that the court may deem fit in favor of the defendant to meet the ends of justice, equity, and good conscience. For this act of kindness, the defendant shall be duty bound forever. Thank you, Your Lordships.
Is there a rebuttal?
Yes, Lordship. The plaintiff has reserved 5 minutes for rebuttal and the defendant has reserved 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Go ahead.
I think before we proceed, I think the second counsel wanted to clarify that negligence aspect, no? So do that first and then you can proceed. Yes.
Much obliged. Your Lordship, can come again with the... I'm sorry.
You have agreed that you will clarify that question raised by other judge.
Your Lordships, before starting with the rebuttals, the counsel would like to apologize as we did not stand, but during the prayer, it was instructed to us that it's no...
No formalities on that. Go ahead.
Much obliged. Thank you very much for your consideration, Lordship. So the time can be started from now for rebuttals. Firstly, as the counsel has already, your Lordships had asked for an Indian case, the counsel would like to state the case that is the Bhopal gas tragedy, that is Union Carbide Corporation versus Union of India. In the present case, the corporation had negligently acted in in the gas had leaked and they had not done anything to prevent the gas leak. And here, not just one person, but like so many people were affected that it went on to generations. So here, even though the state was also held liable, in the end, the corporation was also held liable for negligence.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Wait, counsel, just one. Upar tragedy was different from gas leak. Gas leak is different from Upar tragedy. Upar tragedy was the theatre got...
no, she's talking about the Bhopal gas tragedy. Bhopal.
Yes. I heard it as...
Please go.
Sorry, Your Lordship. So, coming to the...
What my is talking about is the Delhi theatre case.
Yes.
The theatre burned down. So since it was not very clear, he heard Bhopal as Upkar. So go on.
Sorry, Your Lordship.
Go on.
So moving on to the first point of rebuttal, the opposing counsel had made a lot of assumptions, Your Lordship. They had stated that Laura was supposed to have a vaccination, that is the tetanus vaccination for a bacterial infection called diphtheria. The researcher would be sharing her screen, and it will be shown that diphtheria is not the only cause of acute laryngitis, and there are various other bacterial infections which can cause an acute laryngitis. Even if there was a vaccination, the defendant firstly had not explicitly told the plaintiff about that risk as well. Coming to the second point, that is the scope of consent, Your Lordship. There is a scope of consent that Laura can give. Just because she consented to coming on the show does not mean she consented to everything. And consent does not only mean overt actions. It can mean silence in reasonable circumstances. In the present case, she was reasonable in staying silent because there were many implications if she had spoken up. Moreover, she was not aware of the negligent actions of the defendant of non-fumigation negligent action as well, Your Lordship. Coming to the third assumption that they had made was that fumigation is very dangerous. Your Lordship, it has to be seen that with increase in literature and scientific knowledge, it is very well, as my co-counsel had already showed a PDF showing the benefits of fumigation which overweigh the risks of fumigation. If fumigation is done, it is only for the better. Moving on to the next point, that is, they had drawn a parallel line with coronavirus that you're not supposed to fumigate. That is World Health Organization had told, you don't have to fumigate for coronavirus. The Lordship, it has to be taken into consideration that is a virus, and in the present case we're talking about and not a virus. The precautions that need to be taken are different as well. coming to the sixth point, as your lordships had rightly pointed out in the opposing team's counsel, we had only asked for a basic doctor, that is a basic medical team on the island, and not a specialized doctor, your lordship. So that argument does not work, your lordship. Moving on to the fact about Novus Actus intervenience, and them saying that he had been silent and therefore it was that was Novus Actus intervenience. The council would like to state the principle that Novus Actus intervenience is a third party, your lordship. The defendant, there is a negligence on part of defendant, and then third party affects that negligence, and because of that, plaintiff's injuries aggravate. In the present case, plaintiff, even if she could be the Novus Actus intervenience, but she was not, your lordship, as has already been explained in the submissions, your lordship. Coming to the next point regarding, they had assumed that, if I may take a second, your lordship. Yes, your lordship. So they had stated that that proposition has stated she got acute laryngitis, and then acute laryngitis only lasts for 2 weeks. But your lordships, it has to be taken into consideration that proposition comes first and then the clarifications are released. In the clarification 28 and 29 very clearly state that she was hospitalized for 3 weeks, and even after discharge of 3 weeks, she was still under medical supervision and medical care, which it could be implied that she was not completely cured. So it could be a case of chronic laryngitis as well. We're not saying that it is, but it could be. That assumption has to be taken into consideration. The researcher has shown the clarification as well, your lordship. Your lordship may please refer to that. Coming to the next point. Counsel of the opponents had stated a case of Lagden versus O'Connor, which states that if the risk is foreseeable, you don't have to pay damages partly or something. But that case, what the council would like to say is that case has already been overruled, which says that if loss is reasonably foreseeable,
council would have to seek time because
sorry, lordship.
No problem. Seek time and then we will grant you.
The council had not taken. So with that,
no,
sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead, complete it.
This case has been overruled, and the new case has stated that a reasonably foreseeable risk must be compensated, and they must take the victim as they are, as explained before by Eggshell Skull rule as well. With that, I complete my rebuttal. Sorry for taking extra time, your lordships. Thank you very much for. Thank you very much.
I will quickly ask you, what you people have not covered is proximate cause. Now, when a plaintiff is suing, I would want to hear what exactly is the proximate cause for you, because that is not clear at all. Secondly, when you go on the aspect of damages, you would have to convince the court on why you have arrived at a certain figure and how you would want to split that up for you to have come to the conclusion that is the X amount that you want to seek. So quickly on proximate cause and damages, convince the court in a minute.
Yes, your lordship. Regarding the proximate cause, your lordship, the proximate cause here is the bacterial infection which led to the acute laryngitis, your lordship. It has to be taken as one, as it cannot be separated because of this, that had happened. And coming to the point of what is the yardstick with the yardstick that you're comparing the damages with. So your lordship, what we would like to state is for cancellation of TOR, the council would like to submit that the TOR was of global nature, which shows that it will create huge amounts of profit, and therefore it would have created even more than 50 lakhs, your lordship. We are being reasonable by asking 50 lakhs.
No. Damages always come on twofold. One is damages for what you're incurring. Two is consequential damages. What you're talking about is consequential damages. As a result of the loss of a TOR or whatever, those are consequential. You have to say, why are you seeking damages on what happened to you? First, convince me on that.
Your Lordship, it was only because of the negligent action that the chain of actions had started, Your Lordship. That link had started there, which in the end led her to losing her voice, and that decision of cancelling the tour was forced upon her because of the circumstance created by the defendant. If the show was, yes, if Your Lordship...
It was always first talked about in terms of the trauma, in terms of the difficulty that you face, in terms of the grief, in terms of the pain and suffering. You start with that and then you go to consequential damages.
Sorry, Your Lordships. The council stands corrected, Your Lordships. So, Your Lordship, it has to be seen that Laura had immense potential, that is singing sensation, lots of tour, lots of fans. This shows that she had a huge hope and dream of making it global. And it was, she even had a contract. If even it was not stated that they have a contract, as the council had already stated, it has to be noted that it was a commercial agreement, and contractual obligations can be presumed in commercial agreements. So it can be
again, despite us continuously asking you, first you have to talk about how she was hospitalized, what kind of pain she went through. That is where you convince me on the first amount of damage. Am I? If my lord is in agreement with me on that.
Yeah, yes, Your Lordship. The council understood, Your Lordship. So, Your Lordship, it has to be seen that she was hospitalized for 3 weeks, and she had got acute laryngitis, and she was aware that acute laryngitis would affect her voice. And as a singer, there is nothing more devastating than losing one's voice, Your Lordship. If a singer loses her voice, she has lost her day job, her dream, her everything, Your Lordship. And here, acute laryngitis had made Laura incoherent of speech, Your Lordship, not even the art of singing. Singing comes next. First, she has to speak in order to sing. And even after medication also, she needs time to recuperate. What if because of this acute laryngitis, it develops into something more, and she is forever rendered incoherent of speech, Your Lordship. So it has to be taken into consideration that Laura was a singer. It affects Laura in a different way, and it is more grave. It is very grave for Laura than it would be for a normal passenger.
All right, done.
Okay, with that I conclude, Your Lordship. Thank you very much for the instructions, Your Lordship. The council seeks apologies for not grabbing them on. Thank you very much, Your Lordship.
Your Lordship, Council second will take the rebuttals.
Yes.
First of all, the opponent council has questioned the authenticity of the claim that we have put forward that what Laura had was cutaneous diphtheria. It should be noted that though there are a few other bacteria that can cause laryngitis, the only bacteria, as was also supported in the data, the only bacteria which can cause laryngitis by being on skin, that is by being cutaneous, is the cutaneous diphtheria. The other bacteria are Chlamydia pneumoniae, Mycoplasma pneumoniae, Moraxia catarrhales, H. influenza, A. oceris, and Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The only bacteria over here which has skin symptoms, that is S or SS. But if it develops on the skin, it gives boils to your skin, and the boils cannot cause laryngitis. The only bacteria which can cause laryngitis with skin infection is other than diphtheria is S. aureus, but whereas the only bacteria which can cause laryngitis by being cutaneous is diphtheria only, as was provided in the document stated. Also, the opponent council has made a lot of presumptions regarding the fumigations as well. They had contended that chlorine dioxide should have been used for fumigation of the rooms. It should be noted, Your Honor, that chlorine dioxide is used mostly in agriculture sectors, and the rooms are generally fumigated by formaldehyde, of which the harmful effects were stated by my co-counselor, and the data was also presented by WHO. It is to be noted that chlorine dioxide, it has bleaching properties, and also it is highly explosive in nature. If it comes in contact with sunlight, it decomposes. And so even if we had the rooms fumigated with chlorine dioxide, it would have exposed the contestant to further danger. As you can see, it is used in agricultural field, and it decomposes in the presence of sunlight, which is obvious that there was sunlight present over there. Which takes us to the point that the opponent council has claimed that because Laura was a singer, her voice was more important in case of the defendants to take care of that, and that it had been a different effect had it been a normal person. It should be noted that over here there was no obligation towards us specifically for a voice because of the fact that she was a singer, because she came over here as a celebrity only and not as a singer. Secondly, the show was inherently dangerous as the format of the show was adventurous only. Thirdly, she remained silent herself. Fourthly, it was a consensual contract. We did not force Laura to come to our show. And thirdly, it is to be noted that there were 12 people from different walks of life. If we would to be held liable for each and every profession and their special skills, then we will be obligated towards each and every body part of various especially extraordinarily liable for each and every specialized talent for each and every contestant that came over here. And had Laura been so careful about her voice and so she was so had it been so important to her, she wouldn't have come to the show despite of the fact that GMT had warned her and showed displeasure to her. She voluntarily came to that show. So that is why it was not our responsibility to be specifically obligated toward maintaining her voice and taking care of that. And also, it is to be noted that though Laura was admitted for nearly 3 weeks of time, it is again and again stated by the council that chronic laryngitis has to be more than 3 weeks. She was admitted in the hospital for 3 weeks. Mood proposition has explicitly mentioned the word acute laryngitis, and she was medication and care afterwards. Had it been chronic laryngitis, it would have lasted much more than 3 weeks, and she would have been going under proper treatment for chronic laryngitis. She wouldn't have been discharged within nearly 3 weeks, your lordship. And we shall not rely on that presumption that she might have developed it later on, because the mood proposition is very much specific about it being acute laryngitis. And even if we give her 15 days of extra time for recovering completely as she was a singer, there was still 3 months of time left, and she would have been in the show till the month of October only had she been hale and hearty. So there was no nexus between the cancellation of the tour and Laura having laryngitis. Also, there was no binding contract over there, and Laura did not even tell us before, and we are not liable for any contract that she enters later on or has the probability of entering later on in her life. Right? Then the rule of ad infinitum will come into picture. And also, the place of shoot was questioned over here. The council seeks half a minute of extra time. The place of shoot, according to the show's format, as suggested, was back to nature. It is only expected that in natural habitats there are various fungi, bacteria, and things like that, which can cause various diseases. Even the rashes, even the plants, there are various poisonous plants, etc. And this was chosen owing to the flora and fauna, and that because it was not a very active tourist location, it was chosen for hassle-free shooting only. And it is to be noted that the opposite council compared this and gave example of Julius and Caesar, comparing a criminal case of homicide, a fictional case of homicide, with the case of negligence, tortious negligence over here does not establish anything. It does not establish anything. With this, also, what the opposite council claimed was mentioned in their oral rounds was not misfeasance actually, because what they were claiming that we omitted various duties. That is non-feasance and not misfeasance. So they chose the wrong term over here. With this, the council rests her rebuttals.
All right, it's still misfeasance. Anyway, one of your defenses is act of God, right?
Yes, Your Lordship.
What is the difference between act of God and force majeure?
Yes, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, in act of God, in the event of act of God, there is no human intervention. The event is completely accidental, and it is not foreseeable, and the damages are resulted from that only. And in case of force majeure, the exact definition is not the council is not aware of the exact definition, as what we contended was vis major only. Force majeure is force major is
Okay, all right. That's all right. Even if you're not able to describe force majeure, would a disease be an act of God, or would a disease be force majeure?
Your Lordship, this was an act of God because the bacteria and the
God is always a natural calamity, or something that's unforeseeable and suddenly happens. Can a disease be called an act of God?
Your Lordship, it is to be noted that the bacteria that were there were present in the natural habitat, and that is why it was a natural cause. And the definition of vis major claims it to be an accident and not necessarily a catastrophic natural calamity. Any unfortunate event that is beyond controllable and not.
Then you should have specifically taken the contention of an inevitable accident. That is one contention that both of you have failed to state. An inevitable accident is one that could happen at any such time, which is probable with respect to things like diseases or any such thing.
Your Lordship, the Council duly agrees with this. The contention of vis major was stated because the bacteria were present in the natural habitat and was caught naturally by Laura. That is why the contention of vis major was taken.
All right. If my Lord has any other questions for them? I think he's gone offline.
Yes, Your Lordship, he is not visible.
Could you try to get back?
Yes, ma'am. So we'll be back online in 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes. We are speaking to her.
Right. So until such time, I'll just tell you girls, what you do need to do is next time focus a lot on Indian judgments, because you're before an Indian court, because you're before a local court, you're before the civil court. You haven't gone researched, both teams have not researched on judgments, because Delhi Municipal Corporation has quite a few judgments, one on a clock tower falling down, one on a tree falling. So you're able to state that municipality didn't take due caution in looking at which trees and branches would have to be chopped and therefore taking care. And the other one of the tower falling down, they didn't take care in respect of looking at the structure, and therefore a person died. So these are the kind of cases that you need to come into. You can't keep, things like quoting like Lord Denning or, Justice Coke and things like that before a law court never would work. You could always draw parallels and take from, English jurisprudence, but you'd always have to refer to Indian judgments because we're bound by them. Only in cases where you do not have any precedents, then you could probably fall back upon English judgments. All right? And both teams would have to always look on legal aspects to convince the courts, because every fact has to be substantiated with a legal argument. Therefore, you need to split it up into legal arguments, and next time do try to see to it that you do only look at your paper for points and not read from them. It has to be a natural process wherein you talk to us and you convince us with your skills of arguments as opposed to reading. So when you read, you only quote something and then from there on you look at it. So every time you need to brush up something, keep aside only points to look at so that you develop from there. All right? Oh, my Lord's back. Right. We were waiting for you if you have any questions for her.
Oh, no questions now. No.
Okay. Thank you, Your Lordships, for your valuable inputs.
Most welcome. Yes, Ms. Preeti, now.
Yes, thank you, Your Lordships, and all the participants for joining this session. The participants may leave now.